All right, today we are going to talk about el pretérito, which is the other way of talking about the past tense. Now, the uses of the preterite, in order to figure out whether you're going to use the preterite, you ask yourself 4 questions, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. Okay, so the 4 questions to decide whether or not to use preterite, and of course if you don't use preterite, you would use imperfect. The first question, do I know when it started? Do I know when it ended? Do I know how long it lasted? Or do I know how many times it happened? And if my answer to any of these is yes, then I'm going to use the preterite, okay? Not the imperfect, the preterite. So it's easy to remember that the imperfect is called imperfect because the time frame isn't very specific. Versus preterite, the time frame is a little bit more laid out. Now, keep in mind, when it started and when it ended can be relative. So if you're talking about a series of events, so this happened, then this happened, then this happened, you know that you're going to use preterite because you know that, well, when this one ended, this one started. So it gives you the relative start and end times. You use preterite when you have a series of events. Okay, so the next question is, how is it formed? Preterite tense for AR verbs is A, haste, O, amos, and aron. Okay, so for example, hablar would be hablé, I talked. Hablaste, you talked. Habló, he or she talked. Hablamos, we talked. Hablaron, they talked. Okay? Okay, so these are your regular, oops, I did it again. These are your regular AR, hold on, let me use a different color, regular AR verb endings. A, haste, o, amos, aron. Okay? Let me erase that so you can see that ending a little bit better. A-R-O-N, aron. Okay, next, moving on to your ER verb endings. And you will notice that they are the same as your IR verb endings. So, iste, io, imos, ieron. And then over here, same thing. Iste, io, imos, ieron. Please notice that there are tildes on all of the io forms. There are also tildes on all of the ella forms. And yes, it matters. Why? Well, there is a word, camine, which is the subjunctive, which you don't know what that means yet. But understand that camine, without the tilde, is a completely different word. So the tildes here matter. Okay. You'll see down below 3 of the irregular verbs that you studied last year. Hacer, dar, and ver. Hacer, of course, means to do or to make. Dar, to give. And ver, to see. So, hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicieron. You'll notice that none of these have tildes, which is true for all of the irregular verbs for which the stem changes significantly. So if the stem looks a whole lot different than the original verb, we change the A to an I, for example. That's the stem, not the ending, the stem. So therefore, we know that with these that look completely different than the irregular verb, we know that they do not have tildes. Take a moment to pause the video and write these down if you haven't already done so. Okay, while we're focused on AR verbs, I want to point out that there are 3 verb endings in the AR category that are irregular, okay? And they are irregular because if you put an E after a C, it changes the pronunciation. It's no longer car like it was here with a k, but it's se. So we don't want that. We want to keep the k sound. So what we have to do is for car verbs, we change it to K. Only in the yo form, okay? So buscar, busqué. Chocar, choqué. Practicar, practiqué. Sacar, this should say, sacar, to take out, saqué, I took out. Okay. We also have gar verbs, and what happens is if you put an E after a G, we change the pronunciation. So it's not gay, which is what we want. It was gar, we want gay. Well, that's not what we have. We have ge, like inteligente or genial. So we don't want that. We want to keep the g sound. How do we do it? We change gar to gay. So investigar to investigué with a U in there. Navegar, navigué with a U, okay? Jugar, jugué, llegar, llegué. And just like practicar, investigar only changes like this in the yo form. So the rest of the forms are normal. You don't add the U in the tu form, and the ella form, and the ellos form, just the yo form. Okay, last one is zar, Z-A-R. And what happens if we put, well, we can't put an E after a Z. It's just not allowed in the rules of Spanish. So what we have to do is we have to change it to a C. Oops, that covered that up. So almorzar becomes almorcé. Comenzar, comencé. Cruzar, crucé. Empezar, empecé. Okay, so I ate lunch, I began, I crossed, and I began. Empezar and comenzar mean the same thing. If you haven't already done so, take a moment to pause the video and to write down the rules for zar, car, gar. There's also on the same page, and I don't know why they included it on the same page because it's kind of different, but we have another irregular verb. Just like hacer, ver, and dar were completely irregular, ir and ser are completely irregular. And strangely enough, they are the same in the preterite. So I went is fui, and I was is also fui. Okay? Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron. Okay. Pause, take down those notes, then we will move on. Okay. This happens, the irregularity of these verbs happens only with ER and IR verbs. And more specifically, it only happens with verbs for which there's a double vowel. Let me erase that so we can clarify that. But see here how it has double E, and then an O before the IR ending, A before the ER ending. It's reflexive, so don't, remember we moved that say to the beginning and we were left with a normal verb. Okay, so this happens anytime you have a vowel before an ER ending or a vowel before an IR ending. Okay, look over here. There are, let's focus on this one first. And you'll notice that all of the different forms, with the exception of this one, all of the different forms have tildes. So that's one difference. The second difference, the thing that's irregular about these is, well, in our el, ella, and in our ellos form, the I, so normally our ending would be L, E, I, O, right? Well, we erase the I and we change it to a Y so that we don't have three vowels in a row. So it becomes leyó. And over here, the ending would have been ieron, L-E-I-E-R-O-N. But then again, we have E-I-E, three vowels in a row. We don't want that, so we change our I to a Y, and we're left with leyeron. Okay? So if we're looking at another verb, such as creer, in yo form, regular I as an ending, I with the tilde, of course. To creíste, normal, except we have the extra tilde, okay? And then L-A, C-R-E, our normal ending would be I-O with the tilde. We don't want that because that leaves us with three vowels in a row, so we change the I to a Y. Creyó. Nosotros creímos with an extra tilde. We don't need that with most verbs, but if there's a vowel before the ending, yes, we do need the tilde there. And then for ellos, C-R-E-I-E-R-O-N, but we see there's a problem because there's three vowels in a row, E-I-E, so we change the I to a Y. Okay. For most verbs, these extra tildes, for most of these kinds of verbs, that is leer, oír, caerse, the ones listed over here, the extra tildes are necessary. So in the tu form, you have to have the tilde. In the nosotros form, you have to have the tilde. The only time that's not true is with verbs like you that end in uir, because the u and the I are both weak vowels, so they don't. You don't have to give the I extra power by adding a tilde. So we just have we have the same spelling change with the y with verbs that end in uir, but we don't have the extra tildes in the tu and the nosotros form. Okay, so with these words, the ones that have a vowel before the er or ir ending, two things happen. For most of them, they have extra tildes in the tu form and in the nosotros form. And then for all of them, the I in the el ella and in the ellos form changes to a y to avoid having three vowels in a row. Okay, and then this irregularity happens with words that end in IR only. So, it happens in verbs for which in present tense there is a stem change. Remember boot verbs? For example, jugar, okay? Actually, let's not use that example because jugar is an AR verb, and so it's not going to change in preterite. So we only do this with words that are boot verbs in present tense that also end in IR, such as morir, to die. Morir. Okay? Now, in yo form, it would go muero, mueres, muere, morimos, back to the O, and then mueren with a UE. So inside the boot, it changes to UE. Outside of the boot, it goes back to the original form. That's in present tense. Okay? These same verbs, the ones that are boot verbs in present tense and that end in IR as well, experience stem changes in the preterite as well, or in the past tense. Okay? So there's three examples here. Remember, in present tense, we have O to UE, we have E to I, and we have E to IE. Well, in preterite, you only have two to remember. Ones that are E to I or E to IE in present tense, in preterite just change from E to I. And then your O to UEs in present tense, such as morir, in preterite just change to U. Okay, so looking at this conjugation right here, you will notice that the endings are normal. I, iste, io, imos, ieron. Normal IR endings. What changes is, look at what comes after the P. I. So the stem part of the verb changes. Okay, the same changes happen here with sentir. The endings are normal. Your stem changes though. I. Okay, and then over here with dormir, notice there is no E, so it's not going to change to an I, but there is an O, and the O's change to U's. So O, U. Okay, down here you have some other verbs that do this as well. Take a moment to pause the video and write down some notes over this particular section. Okay, these verbs are completely irregular. And we've already talked about a few of those. We talked about hacer, we talked about dar, oops, I need to change colors. We talked about hacer, dar, ir, and ser. If you go back in the video, you can see the conjugations for those four. I think there's one more. I can't remember which one it is right now. But these right here below are also completely irregular, meaning that they have irregular stems. And there's not a particular pattern, you just have to learn and memorize them. The easiest way to do this is to memorize the yo form, because you'll notice that there's a kind of a pattern with the endings. So iste, o, imos, ieron. Iste, o, imos, ieron. Okay? So with all of these, there's a pattern with how the endings are. Once you memorize the yo form, you can get to the other forms. Okay, decir and traer are two more, and they're irregular because they add a J in there, which is kind of weird. But you just have to memorize that dije, dijiste, dijo. Again, similar endings, e, iste, o. Dijimos, dijeron. So notice that dijeron and trajeron don't have the I-E-R-O-N, which is what all of these ones have. Okay? Remember, tener, to have, andar, to walk, estar, to be, poder, to be able, poner, to put, saber, to know, venir, to come, decir, to say, traer, to bring. Okay, so take a moment to look over these, find the patterns, and to copy them down into your notes. Okay, there is a song that we'll be going over in class that has you learn them in this order, and so I'm just going to list out the yo forms for these particular verbs. Tener is tuve, estar, estuve, ir es fui, y también ser, which means ser too. Poder, pude, poner, puse, traje es para traer. Hacer, hice, haber, hube, which you will actually never say. It will always exist in hubo, there was. Never yo form. Saber, supe, querer, quise, decir, dije, venir, vine, ver, vi, dar, di, and as I said earlier, on none of these will you have accents. Okay, so just a quick recap on preterite. Number 1, you have regular. Regular AR, regular ER, regular IR. Okay. Number 2, you have zar, car, gar, which change in the yo form only. Number 3, you have I to Y, which only happens when you have the double vowel, so a vowel before your ER ending or a vowel before your IR ending. Okay. Number 4, you have your IR stem changers, which are e, and o, u. Okay. And then lastly, you have your really irregular verbs. And those are the ones you just have to memorize, the yo form. And then the rest of the forms are easier to figure out because they kind of follow the same pattern. But you've got to memorize the yo form because you won't learn it any other way. Also remember with the really irregulars, they don't have any accent marks, which is different than the regular, which always has accent marks in the yo and the ella forms. So that is a recap. That concludes the lesson over the irregular and regular preterite verbs. Make sure you take really good notes because we will be taking a quiz in class.